All right, everybody. Hi, this is Todd Burnham with Burnham Law. I'm here with Phil McCarthy. Phil, introduce yourself a little bit. Tell us what you do.
Sure. I would say it's funny. I came out to Colorado in 1996 and I followed the Colorado Avalanche, right? So I wanted to pick a market for hockey and lacrosse and market spur and grow around some sports teams at certain times. So I picked Colorado. I picked Denver as a market to get outside the East Coast and came out here and ran and grew that business into 4 states, and then screen printing and embroidery house to support our sales channel of team sales, and grew it to about 7 stores before exiting. So I've been out here for 20 years doing that as an entrepreneur. But as of late, one of the things I've been loving more than anything is being in a classroom with students at the University of Denver in the business school. As you know, I've been coaching lacrosse for 30 years. And I was always wondering, where do the things you've learned on a field show up again to be valuable in another arena? And I really did find that it's the same concepts.
It's all the same.
Right? Isn't it?
Yeah,
the dynamics
really
are the same. The way you move a student is the way you move an athlete. And the way you prepare to do that is the same way you would prepare on field. So I've been teaching. I've been an entrepreneur, and as well in the last 8 years, I have been a consultant and an executive coach for different types of businesses, which is awesome. So I'm learning the law of business through you guys in our time together here. I'm learning cybersecurity. I'm learning environmental engineering. I'm learning venture capital. So it allows you to see all sorts of different opportunities and challenges and how we approach those opportunities and challenges. Some of that has to do with the industries and what's available. And some of it has to do with looking at the business itself inside those industries and saying, how do we get them to be the most efficient? And sometimes it's like looking at the people inside those businesses saying, how do we get them to be the most productive they can be and aligned and get those teams really pushing a business, right?
Yeah.
But today, what we wanted to talk about was building on last week's conversation around unit level economics of a business, right? So what we believe that we opened up a conversation around last week was, let's talk about the first 80% of getting a business to efficiencies.
And so when we talk about 80%, we're also talking about that's your billable and transfer number,
right?
Because we talked about with an hourly rate, certain number of hours, and if you're actually able to bill, say if it's 30 hours is the requirement for your firm, and you're billing 24, right? That's 80% transfer. And what we realized at 80% is you're breaking even.
Right. That's exactly right. So we get a business to break even, we get the efficiencies in, we get the costing in, and we're doing a lot of work to just not make money, right?
We talked about expanding, right? And if you're at 80% and you expand into another state, congratulations, you're making the same money. You just have twice the work.
Right. So you made
a good
mess, right? So the conversation was, let's get that cleaned up. Let's get that as clean as we can through unit level economics, roles, responsibilities, all to create the efficiencies of the business. And then now we've got a new challenge and an awesome new way of looking at the business, which is the last 20%. What's the leakage of the business?
What's the leakage?
But that is a privilege, getting to the point where you're now looking at leakage versus profitability.
And the profitability is the leakage.
Yes.
Right. So the way that I look at this, and at Burnham Law, what we're looking at is if you can get to 90%, right? That's your employment. You get a 3-hour, you can do 27, right? If you can hit 27, that extra 3 hours is really your mental health component, right? If you want to, and if you are comfortable and you're confident and you enjoy your environment and you enjoy your surroundings, you like where you're working, then you do 20%, 27%. That's 90% of the billable requirement of 30, right?
Yeah.
If you want to excel, then you do more, right? We have Jeremy in our office is now a partner. That guy's always hitting over 100%, right? Because that's his standard, right? So if you're at that point and you're like, oh, I'm at 80%, where do I find the leakage? It's going to be everywhere, right? But it's usually, the way that I look at it is in 3 main areas.
Before we get into that, I just want to draw one quick analogy just to make sure that we're understanding exactly where we're diving in, the diving in point, which is, let's consider yourself a golfer of shooting 100, right? And you make these last week's talk was about getting yourself to have the right swing, playing more, getting help, creating efficiencies in the way you playing all 18 holes of golf. So my analogy is, for a golfer getting 100 down to shooting 88, those efficiencies just fall into place just by process, form, and reps.
The basics, you're going to get that. It's like you're on a diet, right?
Yeah.
Like Your goal is to drop 20. First 10, it goes.
As soon as you stop eating the chips, everything drops.
Everything's good.
And you're like, oh my God, this is so easy. But what we're talking about is to get from an 88 or to get the next 10 pounds off, or for a business to then address leakage, you really are talking about a real commitment to identifying where those leaks are, which leaks are a priority for the business, which ones are the lowest hanging fruit, and then how we want to address change around those leakages. That's how you get from 88 to 78 in your golf game. But it does take more work, just like, again, in the analogy for losing weight.
Well, in some practice areas, depending on what they are, they may be at 100, right? And then other ones might be at 75. But at the end of the day, you really want to focus on getting to 90. And how do we get there, right? Get to 100, ideally, right? But in our scenario last time, with our numbers, we showed that if you increased, with the numbers that we had, if you increase 10% from 80 to 90%, you're over $1 million in revenue.
Yeah.
Work that's already there. It's not like you have to go out and get more, but this is where leakage comes in, right? So even though really easy to look and say, we got 80% transfers, let's get those to 90 and make $1 million and call it a day, right?
Yeah.
That's not everything, right? If you're going to dissect and you're looking at this as a house, you're renovating a house. And right now, these are the furnishings. How nice are the furnishings going to be? You want a pool? I look at this in 3 different ways. You good with that?
Yeah, that's great.
All right. So the first one is, what's the average number of cases that you get every day, right? What's the average number that you close? And so say you do on this one.
So we're talking intakes, right?
Intakes. This is intakes.
Yep.
That's my cursor. Anyway, here it is. There you go. If I'm at 40 calls per day, contacts per day, and I close 8, right? My transfer rate is 20%. That's a big deal, right? Yeah. So if I'm at 20%, how do I get to 29 to 30? That's my first thought, right?
Yes.
And that goes to over here. So if I can get to 30, I've got to improve my processes, right?
So you're talking about shooting percent, win rate percents, and then, hey, shoot more shots.
How do I
engage more clients?
Yes.
Right. So there's 2 areas of efficiency here.
There is going to be like from 8 to 10, right?
Yes.
If I want to increase my conversions, talk about that with optimizations and workflows, right? But how do I get this 40?
So at 20% win rate, you're saying 8 cases out of that.
Yep.
But if you were saying, I could move my win rate up, the same amount of work could get me 10 cases.
Yes.
And then the second scenario would be, let's change that rate now to 10 cases. Yeah. Let's go from 40, let's get to 50 cases. That's a different scenario, right?
It's a different scenario, and it's not going to change because you already have this common number that is a constant. Yep. I know based on our the amount of money that we spend for we get 40, right? Yep. We close 8, right? How do I get that to 50 without spending more money, right? You might have to spend a little bit more money, but the answer is adding more value. And so when it says SEO, it really means provide resources. How good, give more content. Can you create resources that people can use, right? The whole point, blog posts, high asset divorces. That's what we do a lot of. Like, how those people more, right? Put resources on the website that are going to be useful to people in the target market that you want.
Yeah, more value, right? And then,
more value.
Then speaking to the value, putting the value in front of people, that gets rewarded with the SEO.
Exactly. So if you can increase that number, say you get 50 calls a day instead of 40, and our close rate is 20% without anything else.
Yeah.
Just by focusing on your website, your SEO, all of the things that are going to add more value to the client experience. What makes them want to call you? Right?
Yep.
That's going to be working on your outward appearance website with messaging and things like that.
Yeah.
So that's my first thought. I'm saying, okay, what can we do better? This is a consistent number. How do I get this number up? Are you doing what other things can you do that's going to generate flow of cases coming in? Yep. And SEO, and the benefit of that is that it's going to come from organic SEO. Search engine optimization. And so you want your website to be dialed in, is flowing. There aren't any, anything like that. Like your stuff and get dialed in on the things that you can control. We're controlling the controllables here. We can't control the economy. People are slow. The economy is tough. We're in a war, right? All of these things like AI is coming. We don't know what that's going to do to all these industries, right? So there's a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah.
Control the controllables. I can't do anything about Iran, but I can control SEO. Right?
That's right. Can you give me an example of one efficiency Burnham Law's put in to increase the SEO conversion rate or people?
So I think that what we do is we'll look at our website and put a lot of time into creating resources, right? We created a ebook for specific practice areas like that. So that's valuable, right? It takes time. Like I wrote Comeback. You wrote that for people based on the people that were going through divorce and family law cases. And we use that as a resource. We offer it for free on the website. No, we're not selling it, right? It's the way the things that are going to be of value, because then you're creating credibility, trust, and authority, right? Yeah. I'm teaching you how, in my experience, how to get through adversity. Isn't that something that someone going through a family law case would find valuable?
They would find that valuable,
right?
For sure.
Now they might not have the time to read 150 pages. So then there's an ebook, right?
Yeah.
Something else. It has the same based on Comeback and the 6 steps, but it's still different. And it gives you the mindset of going through a divorce, choosing an attorney. You usually choose attorneys that are like us, or they mirror the things that we are coming with. If you're fearful, in this book I talk about, if you're fearful and you'll end up going with an aggressive attorney because they're going to appease.
They fill in for that.
They do, right? Yeah. So like yourself, a lot of this is self-reflection as you're going through hard times. And if you can get through these times and use the adversity to your benefit, you're going to find that the adversity itself was a catalyst to growth. And that's what an ebook is about, right? Yeah. So we're talking about these things and we're giving them examples of things that they can use as resources, but not selling, right? Yeah. So this is who we are, this help people, etc. So that's one, right? Yeah. Then we can dial that in, and that's a lot of work, right? How do we increase leads? Everyone wants to know that, right?
That's a big question.
Yeah, so that's what we do on that one. How's that?
That is great. Leakage has 3 points, and you just spoke to the value point. I think it's the hardest one, right? Like you leak through losing value or not communicating the value of others are productivity and revenues. Mm-hmm. We've talked about that with the 80% transfer and billing, right? Moving that needle from 80 to 90%. And then the other one is productivity. And what are your thoughts on some of the productivity enhancements that create leakage, which then lead to loss of revenues or
productivity profit? Resources?
Well, productivity as a leakage point.
Productivity is about billing, right? When it's about that. So, I'm working with a company now that helps us capture time, right?
Okay. Yes.
Sean Adler. Good. That's a way of helping people. And we can go to this now.
Yeah.
80% transfer. You want to start looking and saying, people, the hardest part with lawyers, and this is systemic in the industry, is tracking time, right? Too many times in my past practicing law, I just spoke to someone for 30 minutes. All right, those things add up, right?
Yeah.
You'll end up with possibly losing those 3 hours we will talk about. So if you can find some resources that technology we found that helps us to capture, I'm on a computer, it automatically starts tracking. And it's with AI, so you have already outlined and it's accurate, right?
That's great.
So those kinds of things really matter. We can get to that in a second. Yeah. I want to get to that's a big piece.
Yeah.
The next piece is so when you think about, let me see this here real quick. When you think about historically, this is how intakes works. It all comes in, a lot of communication goes back and forth. If they don't retain, then you're looking at a situation where you have maybe 3 days of communication, right? Back and forth, you're on the phone with people. It's more of not really a system though. There's not a automation that actually works that allows people to stay engaged. And what happens is after 3 days, unless you have people that are calling all of the 32 every single day, right?
Yeah.
32 people every single day, they're already at 66 cases with 3 days, and you have another 40 coming in. So what happens is this goes silent.
And there's your
leakage, right?
Yeah.
The answer to that leakage is trying to figure out in some automation, how do we keep communicating, showing the value that we talked about. See, this is how it works together. Resourcing and directing people to an ebook, calculator, book, reviews, all those different things that just reinforce why we believe that we are best suited to help people in this situation, right? And so there might be 18 different touch points during that time. And it could be text, it could be emails. You don't want it to be overwhelming, but just letting people know that we're still here. Because at the end of the day, we're still we're in the marketing funnel. We're past awareness into decisions. They have contacted us, right? Why are we letting those people, when we believe that we can provide the best service, why are we not being of service on day 4?
Right.
And so all of those days, how many more cases is that going to result in because we have more contact? Does that raise the number to 40? Because the 40 that we already had, we're only getting 20%. So if we add 2 more one more per day,
25%.
right? So now if we're at 25% close rate versus 30% close rate, because we're not giving them up. Make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense. In entrepreneurship, one of the concepts that we have is client relationships, right?
Yep.
It's on a business model canvas. We teach this in our classes. And it's how do I gain a customer? Like, how do I attract a customer? How do I maintain the customer? And then how do I grow a customer, right?
Yep.
The actions that go into all of those are what I'm seeing as these dots right here.
Yeah.
And which ones can we automate and which one are a human being be left to the humans in a conversation, right?
Yeah.
Becomes a talking point for your business. And those are the areas to attack those with efficiencies.
I agree. Really good. And if you can do that, if you can do that and get to a point, it's funny, your rate goes up, all of these things, because then you're looking at all of these pieces and then what's the follow-up? And so what you don't want to do, in my opinion, is have handling anything forward-facing that human.
Yeah.
Connecting in a lot of times there's a lot of trauma. We've talked about that. So AI and optimizations and workflows are supposed to enhance the client experience.
Right. That's right. So I think that for me, what I would want to know as a client is, how does this system work for me in my specific case, right?
Yeah.
So that's a human endeavor. Like someone has to listen to me and say, hey, here's my case. So I see how your systems and processes are out there in general to solve problems. And now let me teach you my personal problem, let you see that you've taken that in. And then now that's kind of some of the next conversation and the next conversation, kind of me closer to me making the decision that's you to solve my issues.
It's awesome.
That's great.
It's awesome. So we're looking at leakage, and just to recap real quick, we're looking at the things that we can control, right? We're at 80% transfers and billing. We want to get to 90. We want to get to 100. We want to get to the things that is a natural flow that also maintains a buffer for prioritizing mental health. Really important, especially when you're dealing with trauma every day. So the things that we talked about was increasing the number of cases, how to do that. Optimizing the intakes past the 3 days. So we have more connectivity through the whole month, which I think is going to result in a higher close rate, not necessarily an increase in the number of cases. That's what the SEO and things are for when we provide services and resources. And then the last piece is going to be like, what can we do to optimize our performance for the firm? What do you think about that?
I think that's the right system. It gives you a 1, 2, 3 step area process to go and say, let's create this, let's assess this, and let's be deliberate in how we want to adjustments or create the plan. That plan.
Well, and if you're able to do these things in an effective way, don't just do one. You know, you're in it. You're already in. So there's no point in looking at how to increase SEO, because all of these things are interconnected, right? Because together they all create your culture. What is your accountability and what's acceptable and what's not?
Well, what you just said is super important, because if I can tie these two together by getting 40 to go to 50, but increasing the efficiencies, not unlike 80 to 90%, increasing the efficiencies is really what creates optimal value for the firm.
And because that's the optimal value for the clients, right? And we talked about this in one of our other webinars. And we are more optimized and we have more efficiencies and we're touching things less, right? Then there's a deeper dive into the case itself and less on the admin. You don't want clients spending money on admin tasks as the least amount as possible, except to the point that you're dealing person to person, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't get substituted. That shouldn't be substituted. Everything else in play. And so don't just look at this from one standpoint and say, oh, I've got this. Number of 40, if that's the number that was 40, that's the number of cases and the calls that come in every day.
Yeah.
How do we increase that number? Because that's a leakage. Because if we just get, 40 is a great number.
I tie the parallel back to growing when you're not perfectly efficient as well.
We did this last week.
Right, because
Yes.
if I double down on my mess, I have twice the mess. If I go from 40 to 80,
Yep.
but don't capture, my win rate doesn't increase because I haven't created this call process and made it more efficient.
Yep.
Really losing a lot more.
Yes,
People, right?
a lot of
For
activity.
the same output.
And there's an argument that can be made, like you increase the number of 40 by just adding more to your ads. But the reality is that you're also going to have to add systems or people to handle more. Like if you have 80 cases,
Yes.
you've got to have it be quality, and people need to be talking to people really quickly, right? So if you get 80, we're adding 3 more lawyers, say,
Yeah.
handle the more intakes and those salaries and everything else. It will end up being another draw.
Yeah.
Just you're breaking even. And it makes no sense. At 80%, you're breaking even. You can make this 100, you still have to service the new cases. And so if you have the same number of people doing 40 cases or calls per day, and you have to get to those cases fast, those people want to be serviced, right? You're going to be doing quick consults to get to the next person, all these different things, too much, too quick. You're going to sell less and you're going to burn out.
Yeah.
So that's not what we're looking for.
No, and this is inbound traffic. They
call it? They want-
I have an issue and I want a solution. I'm interested in you, and I'd
Yeah.
like for you to help me solve it. So
We'll
then
get
make
back
that,
to you in
make
2
that make
days.
sense for me.
Yeah, you're really busy. Like, it doesn't
That's
work,
right, that's
right?
right.
So all of these things working together, and again, like we talked about, 80% transfer. How do you get your transfers to 90, right? What if you don't have enough cases? And this is really interesting to me. Everybody is at 80, right?
Yeah.
I'm going to write this out. Oh, no, I'm not. I'm going to
Ready
do
to
this in,
pretend?
I'm going to do it in blue. So everybody say these are 8 people. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay? Here's your 80% down here. This is all 80%. Everyone's transferring 80%. There are 20% is left open, right?
Yep.
If we wanted to get to 90%, right, or even say 100%, you have 2, 4, 6, 8, right?
Yep.
4, 6, 8. So we have 2 people right here. The 20% then goes to these people. So they all just go into these people.
Reallocate.
That's 100%. So now you're billing at 100%, presumably, but we also remember the buffer, right? We want to look at that buffer because not every week is going to be a good one. Not every time is going to be like, you don't want people stressing out, but you also want people to perform, right? And so if that means that you have 2 people that aren't performing, right? Of the 8 that aren't performing, but maybe they're more like that, then those people would fill in. But if you have 6 people at 100, we want to get to the 90%, and you just bring in 1. So really, to get to that point, if you don't have enough cases, it's not like you're laying off all these people.
Right.
It's not. It's just people need to perform to the 90% and be accountable to that number.
And be
Create capacity, but we already know that they can get to 80.
Yes.
So we are at 80, right? It's either increase or make people be accountable to that 90%, or what are the other things that you can do to help people get to 90 so you don't let people go?
Right.
Training.
And if you're staying, if you've made the cut,
Yeah.
you've hit 100, you've hit 90, you've hit 95, you've hit 80. You're just inconsistent in the way that you do that in most cases. So it's not that you've never done those things.
Right.
You've done it, so you've shown it's possible.
100%.
So then you keep the people on your team that you know possible for, and you help them create some of those efficiencies, and then you maximize capacity.
Well, and it's easy to, and like we're looking at these things in a deep dive, right?
Yep.
Thinking, what's my part? Where am I at fault? What
Yeah.
can I do better? And that is understanding this piece when it comes to training. You have all these cases coming in and you're billing at 80. It could be, you talked about with technology of tracking with using AI, right? Maybe you're billing 90%, but you're just not tracking it. Or it's understanding and making sure that people understand how to work a case, right? How to do a deep dive. What is the timing of these things? When do you want to schedule depositions in relation to a trial?
And then how do we track all that?
As long as you're tracking, yes. But if you can do those additional things that are part of a case on a deeper level, which is what most high asset cases require, then these numbers can already go up if you train people how to work the cases better.
Right.
Like there's an ongoing obligation for everybody to advance in their career, right?
Yeah.
You have to have a career trajectory that includes them getting better, right? And that's our job, training, how to be a better lawyer, how to be a better paralegal. How do you,
makes sense.
Right? If you can train away the gap, then I think that 80% transfer goes to 90%, and that's before we even hit this.
I can't help but also think that ties into the value a client feels.
Yes.
Right? Because if they see their case moving along, and if that comes with billing, that's the flip side of the value.
Yeah.
They see their case moving along because of the way you process it, communicate it, and track it, then they're feeling like they're being taken care of.
Credibility, trust, and authority extends to technology, workflows, and optimizations, right?
Yes,
If you have people that are heavy on the assistant end and doing a lot of the back-end work manually, see that in the billing, and they're going to compare it to other firms that have adopted not necessarily AI all the way. I think we're years out from that. I think that the technology, the workflows, those things are the things that are available. And the hardest part is to find the people that are going to help you, because everybody out there is selling basically clip-ons to existing platforms and saying and calling it AI. So not really an AI movement right now. I think it's more of a workflow optimization movement that coincides with a scaling down economy, uncertainty in the marketplace, and slower times when your attorneys, when the economy reflects that. Good stuff. It's all there. Let me see. Got a question. Let's see. I need glasses. At what point do you start analyzing your systems to see if you need help? Okay. I think that it's a good idea. So the question is, at what point do you start analyzing your processes and your systems to see where you have leakage, right? You do it every year. I think that especially when there's a circumstance that's changing in the market. So we started looking at it just because of the economy. Looking at that, you look, what are the things that we can change? Another one over here, this came to me, was you're charging for consults versus not charging, right? You might get more tire kickers with the not charging. At the same time, you got to be aware, show some emotional intelligence about what's going on in the world, and make sure that you're still adding value, maybe at a smaller time, right?
Yeah.
I think when at the end of the day, when we look at what are the things that are going to work for us, going to be being aware of the surroundings, what's happening in the market, and once a year. Like in January, you're just going to reassess all the things that you're doing, because if you have a website person or marketing person and they're comfortable at 40, problem. I don't know. I want to help as many people as you can and optimize your business in a way that gives you the opportunity to be of service, right? And so if you can do that to more people, then you're providing more impact.
Yeah, I'd say that.
Yeah.
Good question. Wanted to talk install for a little bit.
Yeah.
So would they consider this to be a fair line of thinking? One, on the install, identify all leakage points.
Yep.
One, we take a look here at our business and analyze that. We take a look here. We look at even attrition of our own lawyers, so there's knowledge leakage possibly, or experience leakage. We look at all aspects of our business, cash flows. One, we identify leakages. Two, we prioritize the most important ones that would have the greatest impact on business.
Like you don't want to be focusing on your logo on your website.
Right, so exactly right. We get more eyes on purple than we do on light blue, right? So that's the very end. That's getting you're 78 down to 76 in your golf analogy.
Paint color.
Yeah, you're getting to there.
Yeah.
Then you're deciding challenges to address first. Then we've got to communicate that to the leadership of the firm and the key people that that's going to affect, right? We've got to get buy-in.
Then the messaging underneath that has to be really consistent and authentic and transparent.
Right, and if we do that in a really transparent, genuine, caring, thoughtful way, we get the alignment and the buy-in, and then we play, and then we see what the outcomes are and what the changes are. And then the last piece is to acknowledge which changes created better outcomes and celebrate that.
And be honest about what the data shows.
Right.
Like, you might want a practice area to be successful, right? And you can invest in months and say, okay, this is what's happening, and these are the leakage points of this, this practice area that we really are invested in and we believe in, but we're not getting enough cases, right? We're not, the cases don't provide enough value to the client or something, some reason why it's just not hitting. And so you have to be, with your leadership, you have to be consistent in the way you communicate and be honest about your opinions. And if you know what you're talking about, your opinions should go a long way.
They would, and they could be what decides what you go after for adjustments first.
Yeah.
Again, what you just talked about was making sure key decision makers in the business are informed. They see how the change brings reward and value, and then they commit to making the adjustments necessary to get us there.
I think it's great.
Yeah.
Other questions?
There are other questions in regard to some of these talking points.
So that's, I like the intakes.
Let's talk about this part, attrition, and how that can show up as a leakage point that we want to make sure that we're paying attention to.
Well, I think it goes to training, right? I think the things that, controllables, and if you can control the investment that you have in your people, I think they feel that. Remember, career trajectory is what we are required to provide. Right?
You should. Any good team with great culture should be able to show somebody went from the third line to the second line, right?
Yep.
And somebody went from the second line to the first line.
Yep.
So it's possible.
Yep.
Right?
Yep. So in our cases, like we're doing transfers, like if you want to be on a partner track, which isn't for everybody,
right?
Like you don't have to. We don't need everyone to be wanting that. It's okay. Your requirement would be we want you to bill 100%, 3 extra hours than other people, right? It just shows that level of consistency and commitment. Right? But if you don't want that, if you're less than that, but you're within our range, great, right? People will feel, people are going to receive what they're looking for. If you allow your environment to be open enough where everyone's dreams and visions can combine and live together. Your vision for the firm, it has to incorporate everyone else's vision for their lives.
So that's leadership treating their own people like a client.
Yeah.
You got to listen. You got to understand what's important to them.
Yeah.
And you have to see within the parameters of running the healthy business how we can optimize for them.
Absolutely. And that's a leakage that may be a decision, the firm's decision, still leakage, right? And you don't want that, especially when you have optimizations and all of these different things that are going to take the administrative time down, presumably. You don't want to be a firm, I don't think, that is going to people. I want them to be reallocated to new opportunities.
Right.
So there's new things that come from this, right? And so if you can find new revenue streams somehow that are affiliated and associated with your core business, then that's where other people can continue to grow, even if they're not involved in this aspect here. But you want the people that are really committed, that show the consistent work.
Right. And then they help create profit, which creates a resource that then they can reallocate. And then sometimes it's like, let's go back and put that in over here on intakes. Sometimes that's about paying them to get out into the community and supporting them to do that, to bring in cases, the kind of cases they like to do as well. Creates value for them. And now this system is circling back and supporting all key stakeholders.
If you approach your business, no matter what it is, right? If you approach it like this and constantly look for where areas that you can improve, then I just don't think it's possible to fail. If you have the culture, you've spent all your time building up the talent, right? The performance level is you just don't sacrifice that, right? If you have those people, A players want to work with A players and they require A leadership, and that's this. Right? So you have to rise to the level of your talent at your firm. And if you don't do that, that's when people leave and go someplace else.
Yeah. You have to coach your talent. You have to coach your best people. You have to coach your second line. You got to coach your third line. As
Training.
people are trying to become your best people, the training, the development programs, and how you pay attention to them certainly matters. As you leakage point is, right, you lose the experience of a trial lawyer because allowed a leakage point for them to make a change. And then replacing that person has high cost and high uncertainty.
Yeah, yeah.
So just identifying that as a key point
It is.
Of keeping the system efficient and well thought of is important. The other thing is a new person, new culture. Like it affects culture. So if we can keep more consistent, I mean, the messages here is consistency really matters in stopping leakage. How we act in a consistent manner.
Always. You got a question? I don't have glasses.
Oh yeah.
I read that.
How do you get someone who's talented, smart, but never worked on a team and is a lone wolf to think of the team over themselves? Your view on roles are compelling, but this one person won't buy in, or it's not even in their language. Dave, that's a great question. An athlete or a coach, we've all relate to the idea that I want to be the best player, but it's really important that we win, right? And I think I really like to use the analogy, or I walk through the sports one for people, because we have to solve that as an athlete.
Yeah.
Never been around for very long a teammate that scored 3 goals when we lost, and they want to have a celebration, and the rest of us are looking at that person like,
You know those dudes.
you lone wolf.
Yeah.
Lone wolf, right?
Yeah.
Until the lone wolf solves for themselves the concept of the better I get, the more I have to give, and I've got to help the win, and I got to help the team.
Yeah.
In the meantime, I can be evaluated as a top player. All right. So yes, I think it's great when everyone on the team wants to be a top player. But then we got to see, how do we interrelate to get to the win together?
Yeah.
How do I adopt a methodology, a playing way, or a role that elevates all of us, helps a teammate? And then how do we get the outcomes we want? You are not a star if your team isn't winning. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, you can be paid a contract for that. But you are not a star that leads a successful team that has legacy. You are not supporting a whole ecosystem.
No.
If you're just considering that I hit my 100%, everyone else can fend for themselves.
Well, and here's the, back to the Navy SEALs concept of, and trust, right?
Yeah.
People typically want to be with someone, of high performance, high trust, right?
Yeah.
The reality is that people on a team would take lower performance, high trust over high performance, low trust. And what you're talking about in that question, to me, it seems like that's a high performer, low trust, right? And when I see something like that, would look at this from 2 angles. One is, someone that's really on the team, right? So I look at it and I'd say, that's where counsel might work, right? Go do your work over here. You're a high performer.
Yeah.
Lone wolf. Go be alone. And what that looks like, when you have the lone wolf mingling with the other wolves, you have a lot of wolves exiting because this person typically doesn't really work out.
I think that when you think about growth and you think about skill, will, the attitudes, that efforts that people put in, and awareness, I think the lone wolf, the way to help solve a lone wolf is they've got to become aware of the game they're actually playing. Just to your point, what you just said, they're in that game.
Yeah.
The game where they want to elevate themselves without concern for the win.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
They got to know they're in that game.
Yep.
And they got to know that the energy comes to athletes and performers differently in that way. You're limited to the amount of energy you can get.
Yeah.
Yes, you are a great player, not helping to win. So at the end of the day, what's valuable isn't just that I'm deploying myself in a space. It's that I'm moving the business, i.e. the team, to a more healthy place.
And if you can't...
And that's a star.
But if that lone wolf is like, yeah, wonderful, Phil, but I operate a different way.
Yes. For me, I always think that is the difference between someone that hasn't thought of the benefits of ownership versus playing, just having a role. And if you want to start to be an entrepreneur and have an entrepreneurial mindset, even inside of a business, it's super vital. It's the people we love being around. It's the greatest teammates. They're entrepreneurs inside of a team.
Yeah.
Then we've got to get them to be aware that they're part of a leakage in their own performance. This is their leakage, and they can make themselves a little bit more efficient but it has to drive the value to the team, or their play gets limited by energy and resource and reward and pay.
Well, and also Dave made a point that leakage also is my energy or the person's energy of trying to convince this person to be a team player.
Yes.
That's leakage of energy, right? That's leakage of time. And as attorneys, business person, is everything. It's the biggest, best, most important commodity that we have. And if it's constantly spent trying to people to see our side and on this bus with us, but it might not be the bus for them. There's a bus for that.
Yeah.
Not this bus.
I think we have to pay attention to this. 24-hour rule in sports for coaches. It's really so that somebody settles their nerves, not so much so they say it nicer to a coach.
What do you mean by 24 hours?
So 24-hour rule in sports. I have a concern about my athlete, my kid not playing, or something that happened that's bothered me.
So
coach, if you don't mind. Thanks for clarifying that, guys. I know you're not climbing inside here. Do that as much to protect the headspace of the coach, who then has the responsibility for the rest of the day, week, month of the whole environment, all 24 kids.
Yep.
So what we try to do is not make the that gets sucked in one conversation, whether it's this lone wolf always trying to give them the attention they desire, they need, or draw out of us because they can't get themselves to see the team the right way.
Yeah.
Parent trying to hijack that coach's mental space that is now not available if they're successful for the other 24 kids.
Yeah.
Why we try to give that a calming period because of that impact. That is a leakage of clear vision, clear support for our ecosystem, right? And even their own performance can get thrown if we constantly pay attention to one person's needs over the others.
Yeah, that's what happens.
Great, Dave.
There's your lone wolf, right? So
we have to teach them what their impact is, and have them help get to the truth that you're not a star if you're that person.
Well, and look, the reality is that we're talking about awareness, which is a form of emotional intelligence, right? It's a component of it.
Yeah.
Most people don't have emotional intelligence. It's me. I don't think so. So you've got to also is the juice worth the squeeze? Or do you have awareness enough to know that you might not be able to connect with that person to help them become aware?
Yeah.
Or understand your position? And how much time can you anticipate it's going to take? And what's the ultimate outcome with someone that doesn't have a growth mindset?
Yeah.
And if you don't have that growth mindset, you have a fixed mindset and you're not going to change your mind, right? And so those are the things you just have to be aware of. And your first loss is always your best loss.
They change, you change,
yeah.
Nothing changes.
There you go.
And if you're going to live with what can you live with?
That's it for this week. Just every Thursday for Ask Anything with Todd and Phil. Until then, have a nice week. See you next week.
Thank you, and thanks for those great questions. We appreciate it.
Yeah, good stuff.